Hello, everyone. This is Pastor Gary Sandberg from Bethany Lutheran Church, bringing you one of the Bethany Lutheran Church podcasts. And today I'm joined by Steve Heuer. Steve is a member of Bethany and is currently serving as the treasurer of Bethany Lutheran Church. Steve, can you introduce yourself?
My name's Steve Heuer. I am treasurer of Bethany Lutheran Church. I'm presently retired after about 3.5 years of retirement. Actually, 2.5 years of retirement. It goes fast. And my 40 years in the investment advisor business was with Morgan Stanley. And we're here to talk a little bit about charitable giving.
Yeah, charitable giving. So this might be a little bit of a different sense of a podcast where you're used to having maybe a more of a theological or a biblical expression that comes throughout. We're going to get a little technical with you today, but as I know, Steve, you're going to bring a little Bible into this too, aren't you?
I love John 3:16. And the other day I was also saying it's better to give than to receive, too, and Jesus said that, I believe.
All right. So when we talk about our giving, we talk about charity, we talk about all the ways that comes together. We never separate our God side from our giving side. In fact, when those two come together, that's when ministry really comes to life, as I like to say on Sunday mornings if you've been around Bethany. But as we get into that, let's take a look at what we're talking about with fundraising and what we need to know about fundraising and the church. And Steve, I know that you'd seen some statistics about fundraising over the years. Can you talk about kind of what you've seen?
Absolutely. And I go back to some of the statistics back in 2017, and that charitable giving has risen year over year. But unfortunately, those percentages that have been donated to religious charities have gone down. And right now, it's incredible that the amount of amount of money given to religious charities is only 1/3 of the total amount given to charities worldwide. And, we as a church have done substantial amount of work in giving to charities, and would like to continue to give the money to charities, but we need to discuss that a little bit more.
Yeah, we certainly do. And one of those aspects about giving to charities that are outside of the church is to understand how much the church has influenced some of that. Some of those statistics could also be just slightly skewed if you think about the fact that hospitals years ago, most of them were actually considered nearly religious organizations. They were started by churches and joined by churches. A lot of them have broken out of that church affiliation right now. But what's so important about understanding charitable contributions to religious organizations is how that continues to spread out and what it means. So part of what we talk about is giving to the church, but some of these giving principles are really going to be in place for any place that you give. And I always like to talk about giving to God-pleasing ministries. And I think that's an important function. But particularly we know that as a congregation, Bethany engages in so many God-pleasing ministries and organizations around us. That's why we're so convinced that using Bethany as an avenue for your giving really brings tremendous benefits to the world as a whole, and what we can do there becomes so important.
Right, and you can, the best place to go to look at what ministries Bethany gives to is just go to the ministry's website and scroll down to outreach, and you can see all of the various ministries here in Denver, or our charities here in Denver, that we give to, that we have just been totally involved with. And I think it's extraordinary.
Yep.
And so one of the things that I wanted to bring up today was the charitable giving at the end of the year, and some of the efficient ways that we as members can donate to the congregation. And you want me to go? I'll go ahead and get started.
Yeah, so let me just say, because people might listen to this podcast at different times. So it's November 2nd right now, as Steve and I are sitting down and having this conversation. So it's a great time of the year. These principles can be enacted at any time, of course, but a lot of people think at the end of year about charitable giving. And right now, particularly in our economy, some of the things that you're going to talk about are even more important
Right.
just because of where people might have been with investments and so forth.
Absolutely, and like I stated at the beginning, I've been a financial advisor for almost 40 years, and it was this time of the year that people would come to me and discuss gifting to the charities of their choice or to the churches of their choice. And there was always two ways that we kind of discussed that are the best tax efficient ways to give to churches like Bethany or other charitable organizations. And obviously the first way, and this is not a tax efficient way, but people give cash.
Absolutely, right.
And they write a check.
Yeah.
The easiest way of obviously giving to Bethany or any charity. But in my opinion, like I said before, in the being in the business as long as I've been, and it's not the most tax efficient way of giving to charity. And I would say 95% of the people who worked with me would give cash contributions, and then come November 15th or December 1st, the rest of them would come to me and say, hey, I want to give this stock, and so forth and so on. So,
right.
So one of the best ways, or one of the first methods to talk about, is qualified appreciated stock. And it's really simply put is that if you have a qualified stock that trades on a legitimate exchange like the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ, that you've had a long-term capital gain with, this is appreciated stock. And one of the best methods of having a tax-efficient donation is to gift the stock directly to Bethany or to your charitable organization.
All right, so we're not asking them, don't cash that in and then write a check.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
You're not, because if you cash it in and write a check, you do not get the tax deduction that you deserve. The best way of doing it is transferring it directly to Bethany, and that way you get the full tax deduction. For an example, if I had 2 years ago, if I had $10,000 worth of XYZ stock, and today it's worth $20,000, I have a $10,000 capital gain. Is that correct?
Yes, right. I'm doing the math in my head, and you're
and
right
that's
on.
That's great, and over the last 2 years, it's a good possibility that you have that type of gain.
There are some stocks like that out there, aren't there? Yes.
Absolutely. So what happens is that if you gift the stock directly to Bethany, and it's worth $20,000, you get the whole $20,000 tax deduction, and Bethany gets the whole $20,000.
Right.
Which is totally different than what you were talking about, selling the stock.
Yes. What happens if I sell the stock?
If you sell the stock, you end up paying a capital gain of 20% on that $10,000 that you've gained. So it ends up being, okay, now your cash gift is only $18,000, and so your deduction is $2,000 less, and Bethany gets $2,000 less that way. Very good example of how it is to transfer stock directly to your charity or to your church.
Yeah, and that's not as complicated as it sounds to transfer stock here to Bethany, is it?
No, I think what I would say the easiest way is Bethany has a brokerage account.
Yes.
In which we get appreciated stock in throughout the year. The best thing to do is to call Shelley Hook, and she can and have your advisor on the line with you on that, or your advisor can call her directly and get all the transfer information. And there's a transfer portal that you can move stock directly to Bethany from your stock account. And the day that stock leaves your investment account is the day you know exactly what the valuation of your stock is, so you can use it as a tax deduction.
That's great. And some of that information, I think, is even available on the Bethany website. I know sometimes if you're searching around, websites aren't always the easiest to navigate, and as much as we like to think Bethany's is easier to navigate, sometimes you have a little difficulty finding that. A phone call to the church, if you can't navigate it quickly on your own, is a simple process.
And like what we talked about earlier, and Pastor and I talked a little bit about this before the podcast. You need to talk to your financial advisor about this. I mean, the information that we're giving you right now, we feel very comfortable in giving you. But on the other hand, it's good to talk to your financial advisor and make sure that this is the proper charitable gift for you.
Right, right. That's always important for us to know. We're having a great conversation, but we are not giving you official tax advice.
That's exactly right. It's not our job, but we feel competent enough to suggest things to you.
Right, right. And as an entity, Bethany Lutheran Church takes your contributions very seriously. Not only the way we spend it, but the way we want to be encouragers of you to know that your giving to Bethany can be done in a very secure way and a way that you know will bring great benefits to others.
Absolutely. So let me talk about the other method.
Yeah, please, because I know there's more than just a stock transfer.
And the other method I think is really a good method here at the end of the year. People over 72 years old now can have to take a withdrawal from their IRA or their 401k or their SEP on a yearly basis. And many people do it right at the end of the year. They let their portfolios grow, and they feel comfortable waiting till the end of the year. And this year is a great time to be doing it at the end of the year. So what happens is that if you take that withdrawal, you're taxed on it at what your ordinary income tax is.
Okay.
So if you're at a 25% bracket or a 30% bracket, that's what you're taxed at, and you receive that amount of money less that 30%. Okay.
Okay.
So one of the best methods that I saw while I was being an advisor is that I had several people directly send their withdrawals to their church.
Okay.
And what happens then is that the church, Bethany, would get all of that withdrawal without any taxes taken out, because Bethany is a 501c3 charity.
Absolutely.
And the other thing is the person who owns the IRA and has the withdrawal doesn't pay any taxes on it. So you're not taxed. You give the total money to Bethany, and away you go. It's a win-win situation for Bethany and for you as a person providing the money directly to Bethany and withdrawal from your IRA.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people out there who realize that they're taking those withdrawals and they're saying, I feel like I'm just giving so much money over to taxes. Not that we're saying taxes are bad, but what we're saying is if there's a way that you can look to put that money to work for a charitable organization, why not utilize that as a part of your charitable life?
Absolutely, and that's what it's for. That's why Congress and everybody allowed the fact that you could send your withdrawal from your IRA directly to charity or to Bethany. So that's one of the reasons why they have that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, is to say this is our elected officials who have said this is a good use of your money.
Right.
So as much as they might say, hey, we understand the importance of taxes, even our elected officials understand the importance of charitable giving. And so they've actually put some avenues in place through the law to allow you to be the most efficient with your charitable giving.
Absolutely. And the other thing, Pastor, which was really good, is that I would get clients coming back to me and their tax advisor would tell them, great idea, do this because it may lower your tax bracket.
Oh, right. Even to lower your tax bracket.
Right,
Absolutely.
Right. So,
yeah, great idea, Steve. So these are just a couple of ways if you have those kind of assets built up. Now, if you're a person like me and most of your income in investments is still in retirement, you might say, well, what does that have to do with me? You know what? It's never too early to start thinking about your giving patterns, even later in life, and what that might mean.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if you're a person who gives in cash now, you're going to be thinking in a couple of years as retirement comes about, hey, where do I find that podcast? I remember some great information I want to draw from that.
Absolutely. And just one other thing, and I think Pastor said this, there's a lot of appreciated stock out there, and it's also a great opportunity to take some of that appreciated stock and gift it to Bethany or to your charity, because then you kind of balance out your portfolio that way too.
Great idea.
And so there's a lot of things that you as a member of our church or listening to this podcast should talk to their tax advisor and investment advisor at this time of year about.
Great. Yep, a great opportunity to set that appointment up and make sure it goes. Now, we did talk at the beginning, Steve, and I said, I know that this wasn't all going to be strictly financial necessarily, because you come from a set of religious leaders in your own household who've taught you some of these basic charitable principles.
Absolutely. I grew. My father was a minister. My grandfather was a minister. My uncle was a minister. I heard about it all the time when we were at table having prayers and just talking about giving back to what God is giving you.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. And I know that there's a favorite Bible verse that comes out of that. It happens to be mine as well. And so as we talked about that, I thought, oh, man, well, there's enough time between now and February when I'll be preaching a stewardship sermon. But tell me about John 3:16.
Well, John 3:16, as we know, God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believe in him should not perish but have everlasting life. God gave us the greatest gift we could possibly have, Pastor. And there's absolutely no doubt God wants us to give back, because the fact that he gave his only Son to die for us, and what a gift that is.
Absolutely. When we can take that into our heart, when it can be a part of our spirit, that's what really encourages us to say, if we are claimed and called as a child of God, we live that out, even through our giving.
Absolutely. And there's one thing I do every morning. I get up and look in the mirror and just thank God for being alive and knowing that everything I can do during the day is to give back to him and give to other people who need help is one of the most refreshing things that we can do every day.
Yeah, great, Steve. Hey, this has been wonderful information for us, for people to think about that life of giving and to talk about the ways that we can be the most charitable and also bring us benefits, bring the charitable organizations benefits, and to realize here at Bethany, we understand the importance of giving to those religious organizations, because what we do here has such a tremendous impact in other places in the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it.
Thanks. Well, really appreciate it. Thanks for joining us on this podcast. If you have questions about what you've heard today or something seems a little unclear, never hesitate to call the church. We're happy to get you right in touch with Steve. I'm sure he'd always be happy to converse with you. Again, he's retired. He's not going to give you official tax advice, but we know there are people in your life that can do that and can make all of these principles come to be such a benefit for you and for an organization like Bethany Lutheran Church. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.